Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Lally. I'm part of the technical team here at Solmax. It's a pleasure to have you here today. I'm located in Seattle, Washington, and I'm responsible for the western third of the US and the western third of Canada. It's a pleasure to have you here, and one of the topics that we're going to discuss today is called GundSeal. It's known as the single composite liner system. The GundSeal system is actually one of my personal favorites for a couple reasons. Mainly because it's a system that's been around for several decades, and it actually has a really proven track record. The other thing I like about the GundSeal system is that there's a significant amount of research to back up the performance of it. So in my opinion, I've always been able to recommend the GundSeal system, the Solmax GundSeal system, and have a certain peace of mind. And my objective for this presentation, when it's over, is to give you a peace of mind for the GundSeal system and make sure that you understand it a little bit more. I'll give you a brief synopsis about myself, if that's okay. I've been with Solmax for about 1.5 years now, but I've been in the geotechnical engineering and geosynthetic industry for, close to 20 years. So time flies when you're having fun. Just some house cleaning regarding the presentation itself. I realize I have about 30 minutes. The presentation will probably take about 20, and then the last 10 minutes of the presentation, I'll open the floor to questions. So without further delay, if that sounds acceptable, we'll move on. I always like to put up a quick agenda. And what I'll do is I'll give you a brief introduction to the GundSeal system and why it's called the one product composite liner system. I'll also focus on the GundSeal applications. A lot of different, one thing that you'll learn is that the GundSeal system is a very flexible system, and its ability to adapt to a lot of different conditions and applications. We'll also look at several GundSeal solutions and the advantages of GundSeal, and then we'll wrap things up with the tools, which is actually pretty important because I want to make sure that you are able to make an informed and educated decision as to whether or not the GundSeal system is appropriate for your particular application. So getting to the GundSeal and its components, interesting thing to note about the GundSeal system is that it's considered a GCL, otherwise known as a geosynthetic clay liner. It's comprised of a thin layer of sodium bentonite mixed with a water-based adhesive, and that is then encapsulated and adhered to polyethylene geomembrane with a Spunbond geotextile. It's important to note, and I get this question from time to time regarding the geotextile and its function. And its function really is to just serve as protection for the sodium bentonite. And you can see the three, you can see the picture off to the right of the various components. You have your polyethylene geomembrane, you have your sodium bentonite or clay portion of the product, and then the Spunbond geotextile. Now, the sodium bentonite, also known as montmorillonite, formed from clay, formed from volcanic ash many years ago, used in a lot of different applications, makeup out of all things. But I personally like the material because of its permeability of 5 × 10⁻⁹. I also like its capability and its swelling capability, 10 to 15 times its original size, which is actually the main function of the sodium bentonite if exposed to moisture. An important thing to note when it comes to the GundSeal system or even our GCLs is that we can modify the sodium bentonite to counteract any type of adverse conditions, boundary conditions. So say, for instance, if we have a situation where we're dealing with divalence, which things like calcium, sodium, zinc, magnesium, it's that type of information that we need to know, because if the sodium bentonite is under any type of chemical attack from a divalent, such as those minerals, it really won't serve its intended purpose. So one thing to take away from this with the GundSeal system, or even any GCL system, is that chemistry matters. We always want to know what the surrounding conditions are going to be, the type of leachate it's going to be exposed to, so that the system will be designed for that particular application. And we can do that through these modified bentonite systems. So just keep that in mind. Chemistry matters whenever you're working with this type of material. Now, the geomembrane itself. One thing to note about this particular slide is that the GundSeal system uses an actual geomembrane as defined by the Geosynthetic Research Institute. It is not a laminate. Just keep that in mind. And the reason why I mention that is because I see other GCL manufacturers try to come in with a standard GCL with a laminate, when really what's needed is an actual geomembrane. So if you encountered this, and I've encountered it a couple of times, don't fall for an imposter. Don't fall for a laminate. There's nothing wrong with laminate GCLs. We actually make them ourselves. However, the GundSeal system is very unique in that it is an actual geomembrane set forth by the GRI, as well as all the ASTM standards. So that's what sets GundSeal apart from just a standard GCL. A question that I get regarding the system quite a bit is, how much is the weight? Tell me about the weight of the sodium bentonite per square foot. Well, there it is, 3/4 of a pound. The thing about the geomembrane is that we have a variety of either smooth or textured geomembranes that can be used with this system, as well as conductive. We also have a variety of thicknesses that can be used to suit a particular application, anything from 20 to 80 mil. So when I talked about versatility of the GundSeal system, this is what I'm referring to. But once again, don't be fooled by laminate imposter if you actually want to, if your intention is to utilize a GundSeal system. The Spunbond geotextile is actually pretty vanilla. This material you can see in big box stores, the home improvement stores throughout North America. It's kind of that silvery material that sometimes you'll see for gardening purposes. In short, the Spunbond process is considered the fastest manufacturing method. During the process, extruded filaments are spun onto a belt, a heated belt, and then the textile is adhered to the bentonite layer. And once again, the function of the Spunbond geotextile in the GundSeal system is strictly to protect the sodium bentonite. As far as different applications, I had mentioned, you're going to hear me harp on this, the different applications that GundSeal can be used. I've seen it used everything from bottom liners to caps and closures. We're going to focus on the caps and closure portion on that in a minute. Lagoon ponds, secondary containment. I've seen it used within power plants for processed water, ash repositories, as well as secondary containment applications. When I come back and I mention the chemistry matters, where I see that is basically in mining applications as well as landfill applications, because I really do want to know what the leachate is comprised of, so that we don't have any adverse effects with the sodium bentonite. And I find that in mining in particular, with heap leach pads, solution ponds, and reclamation enclosures, which makes sense considering it's pretty caustic material on those sites. But when the rubber meets the road, the thing that I like to use GundSeal for is I always like to use it in an optimized situation. And where do I see that? I see that in landfills. So in this particular case, we'll focus on a subtitle D base system. Interesting thing to note here is that the GundSeal system does meet the permeability and the mill thickness requirements as set forth by the EPA, as well as the GRI, the Geosynthetic Research Institute, for this type of application. Now, in this case, we're looking at a base system. Okay, so we're looking at the bottom liner. We're looking at new construction, new landfill construction. So starting from the bottom up, we're looking at the soil subgrade, and then we're looking at a Solmax bentonite or a GundSeal. Keep in mind, Solmax also manufactures standard GCLs as well. But in this case, we're looking at the GundSeal system. And the reason why the GundSeal system works in this application is because it's both a GCL as well as a geomembrane. In this case, 60 mil high density polyethylene, which is the standard geomembrane thickness in subtitle D landfill applications. So one thing I like about the GundSeal system is its efficiency. It's basically two components in one, and installers like it because they don't have to do double the work. And so when I talk about optimization in conjunction with a particular material, it's exactly this that I'm talking about. So in this particular situation, you can use the GundSeal system for both the GCL and the geomembrane liner all in one shot. And then on top of that, you would have your Solmax Geocomposite, your filter layer, and then your solid waste goes on top of that. So I understand there might be some variations in state to state regarding this particular design. However, these are just the standard design recommendations set forth by the EPA for subtitle D. And I wanted to show you where our systems would fit within this particular section. Okay, moving on. Now we're getting to subtitle C. And in this case, I see the GundSeal system used as a cover system in subtitle D. Keep in mind the difference between a subtitle C and a subtitle D landfill. Subtitle D is non-hazardous waste. Subtitle C, hazardous waste. So we'll see the GundSeal system used as a cover system for subtitle C. So what I did was I followed the same exact format here as I did for the subtitle D base system to show you where the Solmax systems would fall within the particular section, and in this case, cover. So here we're working from the bottom up, or in this case, we're working from the waste material up. So you have your waste material, and then you have your cover soil, and then you would have your Solmax bentonite, or in this case, GundSeal, once again, two-in-one system, your Solmax Geocomposite, and we actually had a seminar on the Geocomposite earlier this week. And then you would have your drainage layer and then your topsoil on top of that for a subtitle C cover system. Make sense? So very versatile, and I wanted to focus on landfill specifically because that's where I see a lot of GundSeal systems used. Let's focus on a couple of the GundSeal solutions and how it actually might help you and your client in today's real world. Now, one thing that I've noticed is I still see a lot of projects with these compacted clay liners. Nothing wrong with them. I'm sure they have their place in some locations, especially where clay is readily available and cheap. But in a lot of cases, you won't have that luxury. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with a compacted clay liner, consider it a mineral hydraulic barrier that's basically laid down in various thicknesses. Generally, minimum thickness of roughly 12 inches or so, and that's the bare minimum. So they haul in this clay material with trucks, obviously, and then they lay them down in these different layers, generally 12 inches. The thing to keep in mind with these compacted clay liners is that there are a lot of variables in construction that you have to keep in mind and that you do have to keep tabs on. Things like the moisture content of the material. Tell me about the compaction effort, the numbers of the type of machine used in the compaction, number of passes, the type of wheel, etc. Tell me about the thickness of the lifts. Has that been consistent? What's the consistency of the material? Is it all coming from the same site? weather variables come into play, such as temperature and humidity, solar intensity. Also, some of the disadvantages of utilizing the compacted clay liner is that, well, it's slow and complicated to construct, is what I've noticed. Desiccation can occur during construction. It's difficult to self-heal when it's exposed to various weather conditions. Tell me about the availability. Do they have enough at the quarry to actually provide for your project? It also requires a rather, in my opinion, a complex CQA process, and it requires a lot of knowledge of the soil, and actually it puts an extreme burden on the contractor to keep tabs, and the engineering community as well, to keep tabs in order to have a very effective clay liner CCL system. It couldn't be more different when it comes to our GundSeal system, or our GCLs for that matter. It really does relieve the burden on the engineer and on the contractor, especially when it comes to quality control. Solmax follows a very strict CQA process when it comes to our manufacturing, and you always have our specification sheets to refer to. So in short, what you see is what you get, right? So this basically will give you a better peace of mind, and that you actually know what you're getting. Why not erase all of the tedious efforts with a compacted clay liner, not including possible human errors, machine problems, environmental influences that can come into play? The GundSeal system basically eliminates any of the potential worry of a compacted clay liner. But you know, once again, when the rubber hits the road, I really like this particular slide because it really does show not only, you know, QA, QC, but yet this is a slide that the owner would be interested in. And the reason why is because it actually shows them how much volume they can save by using an optimized system like GundSeal. What I did was I just had a quick calculation here, and I wanted to graph it out for you just so it hits home. For example, if you have a landfill that's 50,000 square meters, which is roughly 60,000 square yards or so, if you can reduce the CCL from 300 millimeters, which is about a foot, which is very, very thin section, they're generally thicker than that, and have additional space, say for instance, the additional volume height would be 295 millimeters, because the thickness of the GundSeal is no more than 5 millimeters thick. It's very thin. You would have at least 14,500 cubic meters of additional volume. Now, what does that mean? What that means to the owner, obviously, is that if they have more volume, they can accept more refuse or more waste, and then they can accept more profit. So it's systems like this that resonate with the owners. And it's something that, to me, has always hit home with them. So once they start crunching the numbers, and once they realize that they can actually make more profit by optimizing their section, that's when you get their attention. Still focusing on the GundSeal advantages, a couple other notes that I've experienced that have actually made my life a little easier when utilizing GundSeal is that it has very excellent Layflat properties. What does that mean? I mean, that might not mean much to you, or might not mean much to myself, but it does mean a lot to the installer. Typical high-density polyethylene systems, which are proven systems, wrinkles can be a problem. The thing about GundSeal is that because of its excellent Layflat characteristics, when the installer is welding it, they really don't have to worry about a significant amount of wrinkles within the system. And so it just makes the process go a lot easier. It makes CQA go a lot easier, because every time they start welding a wrinkle, they have to question themselves. So the flatter the system lays, the easier the installation will go, and then hence the quicker everything will proceed without delay. And so because of that, you'll have less potential for leakage, and it also increases the windows for installation. You know, the funny thing is, none of this really matters, though, if you don't have the tools to make an educated decision as to whether or not GundSeal is an appropriate system for you. So that's the reason why we're able to provide you with some of tools that to me are pretty important. Namely, starting from left to right, we have the GundSeal design manual. And one thing I can tell you, if for the insomniacs out in the audience, if you have any problems falling asleep, just crack this manual open. It might help you. It might help you. The thing to note about this particular design manual is that if you look at the caption on the lower left of the design manual, you'll see co-authors to this particular manual. And for those of you that have been in the geosynthetic world for any length of time, you're going to see some familiar names. Some real heavy hitters within the geosynthetic industry, their knowledge has gone into this design manual. So pretty much any condition that you can encounter, it's been addressed in this manual. And once again, it's just meant to give you a peace of mind in order to have a informed and educated decision. We also have our quality assurance installation manual. This manual is geared more towards the installation, contractor. The funny thing is, a lot of the installers out there have installed GundSeal in the past, so they're relatively familiar with the system, and they know how to put it down reliably. However, if they needed a quick reference regarding a specific detail, that's what this quality assurance installation manual is geared towards. And wrapping things up when it comes to the tools, is that we can supply you with CAD drawings or any type of drawing for virtually any type of situation that you would encounter on a GundSeal application. So overall, it's a very comprehensive package, very comprehensive toolkit that we'll be able to supply you with so that it makes the job easier on you. And that's what our job is. Not only that, but giving you the peace of mind. So if you were looking for things like drop-in specifications, CAD drawings, design manual, references, things like that, we can help you with that and make things go very smooth. So just wrapping up here, as far as the GundSeal advantages, it really does offer the best leak protection, mainly because it's two systems in one. As I had mentioned, it's a geomembrane system, a true geomembrane system, not a laminate, along with a geosynthetic clay liner. Short installation time, 2 components as opposed to 1. I like that efficiency. So does the owner, and so do the contractors that install the material. It's going to increase your hydraulic performance, high seam lap integrity. You have the option of welding the material or not welding the material. Also, ease of installation, and once again, the cost savings through a single product install. It goes a long way. Now, I realize I may have gone through some of these slides quickly. However, I only had about 30 minutes or so to present. I think I have roughly 10 minutes to take questions. On this last slide, you should see my contact information. So when it comes to a GundSeal system, or when it comes to any Solmax system, whether it's the GCL system or our synthetic grass capping system, such as Light Earth, when it comes to drainage mediums, and also obviously geomembranes, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to help and provide you with the information that you need so that you can make an informed and educated decision. Thank you again for attending. I hope the Geosynthetic Conference in general has been helpful and that everyone has found what they needed. We appreciate your support. So I hope everyone has a good day. Thank you very much.